Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Good evening,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Good evening, everybody. This is Joel Sarpalli, the host for today's webinar. I welcome you all for today's session. Let's wait till 4:05 and let's wait for other people to join. And after people joining, let's welcome our guest. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is Joel Sarpalli hosting today's event. I welcome you all to this webinar in this evening session. And our chief guest also arrived for our session. Let me introduce him. And I'm very happy to introduce Nagaraju sir to this session. He is a well-experienced guy and he's having 11 years of experience in world's #1 chip maker company, Qualcomm, and he's part of Snapdragon chipsets 630, 660, 730 and 7500. He's educated in well-known Indian institutes like IIT Chennai and IIS Bangalore. So I welcome you, sir, to this webinar on this evening on AI and artificial intelligence. And I'm really happy for another guest, Divakar Singh, sir. I'm really happy for your presence also. Let me hand over this session to our guest, Nagaraj, sir. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much, Saripalli. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So this is exciting. I see a very good response. And first, I would like to thank the student committee and Mr. K.K. Singh, faculty convener, Uday Kiran Jayanti, the president, and of course Bhargav, and not last but not least, Mr. Divakar Singh, who helped to arranging this session. So let me start. Okay, so let me start presenting. Okay. Okay, so actually the title of the webinar is Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. Okay, so this is Jumpstart Your Career. Okay, a webinar by Data Grounded. So, I mean, why this webinar? Okay, so this webinar is specially tailored for undergraduate students or graduate students interested in getting started with machine learning and AI. And this is the right time to start with machine learning and AI concepts, which will enhance skill sets and knowledge and opportunities. Okay, and you must have all heard, right? The future is here. Machine learning is not 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, right? It's here now and it's already happening. And AI/ML is considered to be the electricity of the next generation. So you must have heard, right? What did the mankind discover thousands of years back? The first discovery was fire. Okay, so after fire was discovered, the human evolution completely took a new turn, and man started doing a lot of new things. Okay, and similarly, the next biggest revolution was electricity. Okay. So after electricity was discovered, I mean, so many new factories, companies, organizations have come up, right? Everything that we use today, the lights, the TV, the refrigerator, and this laptop and the mobile devices that you're using, all because of electricity, right? And now you know what they're talking about. They're talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence as the electricity of the next industrial revolution. So it's that big. Okay. So, I mean, that is just to put things in perspective, right? That means we are just at the beginning of artificial intelligence and machine learning revolution. Okay. So, I mean, before I start, talking a lot, first I want to get a feedback on how the voice quality is and if you are able to hear properly and everything, right? So you're all able to hear properly?
Yes, sir.
It's crisp and clear?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So the AI business in 2018 was around $21 billion, and it's expected to reach $190 billion by 2025. And that is multifold increase in growth, right? And almost, I mean, you must have seen, right? Everybody, Google, Ola, Uber, Amazon, Swiggy, all the giant organizations, right? Everything, I mean, all the organizations that you think of, like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Ola, Uber, Swiggy, and many more, right? They all have adopted to AI and ML. And there is no escape for other organizations. They have to adopt, otherwise they will be completely wiped out from the competition. That means every company is going to adopt AI and ML, and it's going to become very important for the future. And now, students and engineering graduates will benefit greatly by this. I think you all understand, right, how much important it is, and you guys will benefit a lot by upgrading your skill set with AI and ML. Okay, so that is just the background. Okay, so what is Data Grounded? Data Grounded is a company founded by me. Okay, and the main mission of Data Grounded was, when we started, was to impart very high quality education with at the most affordable cost, and breed in a lot of entrepreneurs like you. Okay, so one of our goal also has been to contribute a lot on the research and development through empowering students like you, right? And of course the most affordable education. And already my introduction was given, and I don't think I need to talk a lot, but a little bit about myself. My journey started a long time back, right? So I had this great dream that I should get into IIT. So I was successful. I went to IIT Chennai, but before that I wanted to become a scientist, like, really big scientist. But once we went into IIT, I mean, it is like a scientific environment only, but we became more like a engineers. But that that angle of mathematics and analytics is always there. Okay, so next, I wanted to become like C.V. Raman, and that's the reason I did not go to countries abroad for my education. So I did my masters from IIC Bangalore. Okay, and then I have, of course, worked in the US and many other places. Okay, so and most important, my last experience was with Qualcomm. So you all might have heard about Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm is #1 mobile chip maker in the world. Okay, so they make millions of chips, and I was part of this Snapdragon chipset, 630, 660, and 730. I'm not sure if you heard of these chipsets. For example, 630 was there in many Android devices. It was there in Oppo, Xiaomi, Vivo, Samsung. I remember, I mean, at least 730 was the latest chipset. It had the high-end flip camera. Actually you could flip it, and it was designed from our team, and that went into Samsung Galaxy A80. A70 also had the same chipset. So I worked on all these chipsets, and then then we wanted to start our own organization. Okay, so yeah. So I'm also a meditation teacher. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. So without wasting a lot of time, let's jump into the subject. Okay, so what is this webinar going to cover? So I will be talking mostly about the implementation aspects of basic fundamentals of AI and ML. Okay, so of course Jupyter Notebook, Python, some little bit of scikit-learn, how to do image operations using OpenCV, demo of the object detection on videos, face detection on camera. Okay, so all this I'm going to cover, but we don't have so much of time, so it will be a little quicker. Okay, but if you have questions, you can ask in the middle, or maybe you can keep it for the later. Okay, so before going ahead, I just want to take a survey of how many of you are from computer science background or electronics. I don't know if I'll be able to see that in the chat. Okay, so I see a lot of CSE and EC. Okay, wonderful. So that means that's very nice to see a lot of EC and CSE guys, right? So that means, and you all know Python. How many of you know Python? Just say Python, just type Python, if you don't mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so that's a lot. So you guys are all experts. Okay, wonderful. So a lot of people know Python, so that is a very strong basic for your machine learning journey. Okay, so that is good. So I know the audience that I am speaking to. Okay, so we are going to cover a little bit of Python because a little bit of Python, Jupyter Notebook, machine learning. And one more question: how many of you have used Jupyter Notebook? Jupyter Notebook. Okay, not many. That is surprising. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. Okay, I only see 5 people, but that is still a good number, right? I think that is still a good number. Okay, so now, okay, so we will go to, and in the end also, I'm going to provide something very interesting. There's going to be a data grounded internship challenge. I'm going to talk about, so don't go away. Stay tuned. Okay. Okay. So we'll just start with fundamentals, right? This class is about fundamentals. Okay. Okay. So what is machine learning? So machine learning is, in very simple terms, right? It's systems' ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed, right? So, I mean, you can write everything in logic, right? You can actually write logic even for face detection if you had that many variables, probably, right? So, but that's not we are calling machine learning. Machine learning is it learns from the data and then, without being explicitly programmed. Okay. So now people ask, what is artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning? What's all this? Why do we have so many things, right? So artificial intelligence is a general term, right, that started, okay, when we saw Transformers. I mean, you see, right, all these great robots having human intelligence, right? It started even before 1980, right? 1970, even before that. So that is a general term that we use for machines mimicking the human intelligence. Okay. So when you start getting into a specific term, then we talk about machine learning. Okay, a technique by which a computer can learn from data without using complex set of rules, right? I mean, you can write a program also, but that is not machine learning. And then deep learning is a very specific area in machine learning, okay, related to neural networks. Okay, deep learning is basically it has got its I mean, the origins from the neural networks. It is inspired from the way the neurons work in the brain. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Okay, just quickly, now that we learned, so let's look at different examples. What is this? This is face detection, right? And this is of course machine learning. It comes in AI, and this is a specific part of the machine learning called deep learning. Okay, so then next, go to the next. What is this? Let's say stock market prediction. That is also machine learning, but that comes in linear regression, right? So here you are predicting a continuous variable. I mean, of course, when you go to Google, right, when you search some things, I mean, Google has its own intelligent algorithm to search through various different websites. And that comes in specific area in machine learning called NLP, natural language processing. NLP itself is a huge area, and it deals with stuff like sentiment analysis, recommendation systems, topic modeling. It mainly deals with the text, okay, text data. That is NLP. Okay, so I'm sure you know this much. Okay, so also when you go to Amazon, right? When you go to Amazon, you see when you go to buy something. Okay, and then Amazon itself recommends you so many different products, and that comes in recommendation systems, and that is part of NLP. Okay, and that is a little more complicated algorithm. It can be implemented using the classical machine learning, so-called classical machine learning, or it can be implemented using the deep learning. Okay, so now let's look at the expanse of machine learning in different parts of the industry, right? Different aspects of the industry. So AIML is expanding rapidly, right? In business also. Today, if somebody has to get a loan, So bank collects the data about that person, okay, and then runs an algorithm to find out whether that person should get a loan or not. And if he is getting a loan, how much should be the percentage of interest, right? So, I mean, that is one aspect of AIML in business, right? Other aspects are there are clustering algorithms, okay, which are clustering the customers into different segments, and machine learning is telling you which which individuals the company should call so that the products get sold. So it has become that accurate. So they don't want to waste their calls, right? Neither they want to waste their money on the marketing. So AIML has gone so deep that every aspect of business is using AIML. I just talked about two aspects. AIML is getting into agriculture also, right? Agriculture also you must have known. Even for the soil grading, you want to find out which pests are there in the, crops are infested with which pests and what should be the remedy. Even there, the AIML is being used. Other application is drones, right? Drones can be used to do the surveillance, and they can also find out various things in agriculture. Okay, so that's one. And next is the AIML in healthcare, and you'd be surprised. I don't know if you already know about it. Okay, so how do doctors detect diseases? Right, when you go to doctor, what does he do? So he'll find out some symptoms and he'll tell you, can you please go and get this test data? So what you do is you go to the lab, and lab will make measurements of maybe like 10 different parameters from your blood, right? Maybe blood group, the calcium content, insulin content, thyroxine, or whatever, or different parameters, right? And now you go and also, of course, weight, BP, height, color. Okay, so you go and give that data to doctor, and doctor, because he knows if you are between 80 to 120 range, your BP is between 80 to 120 range, then he knows that you have BP, right? Or if your sugar is in certain range, then doctor is going to tell you you got sugar, or maybe some people have got corona or whatever, right? So, but in future, it's going to be much more advanced. It's already happening. It's not like tomorrow it's going to happen. It's already started happening. There are algorithms which can detect diseases with much more precision than doctors can do. Okay, doctors have a general idea, right? The BP should be between 8 to 120, right? But the algorithms will do a better job. It will say, I have clustered you in a different segment of population based on your height, weight, blood group, not based on race, caste, and all that, right? Probably based on all these medical parameters. And I see that your cluster, you belong to a cluster C2. In that cluster, it's normal to have a BP of 140. 90 to 140. So algorithms can become so specific to the individual. So that means the healthcare is going to change, and doctors are still needed to interpret that data, right? And probably to give treatment. But a lot of this is going to be done by the doctors, and of course they need all you guys, right? The machine learning engineers working on this and build these beautiful products. Okay, so of course AIML is getting into scientific research and education. So how many of you know that a few years back, I don't know, it's just few months back, right? A few months back, there was, I don't know if it is UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is very advanced in space research, right? So what they did is they ran one algorithm which just measures the positions of stars, constellations, and planets at different points of the day. Maybe for a week or for a month, it took all the measurements, and the model came up with theories, and the theories are very surprising. You know what theories it came up with? First theory, right? Earth rotates around the sun. First theory. Second theory, all the planets, it named the planets. This is planet 1, planet 2, planet. These are planets. These are not stars. This is a different cluster, and these guys are rotating around the sun, and so they are planets, and their revolution speeds, right? And then it went further, saying that Earth, the sun is a star and it belongs to galaxy, and it's revolving around in the galaxy. And then it came up with theories for different stars. You see what scientists could not do for a very long time. I mean, now they have done it, but these algorithms are able to do. Okay, so this is just to emphasize the importance of AI and ML, right? So let me go a little deeper. Okay, so I mean, when we come to machine learning, the plain machine learning, so we have two different types of algorithms, right? Unsupervised learning and supervised learning. Okay, in supervised learning, features and labels are available, right? So those people who are doing machine learning, they must be knowing features and labels are available, and features are called independent variables, and labels are the target variables or dependent variables. So machine learning model learns the relationship between y and f of x, right? I mean, if I have to draw this, okay, so if I have to draw it, it's very simple, right? So your x is the input variables. It can be like many variables, right? X1, X2, X3, and what do we call this? We call these feature variables, right? And then let's say you have been given 1,000 samples of X, and you also have been given 1,000 samples of Y, right? So what can be X? X can come from Excel sheet, right? It can come from Excel sheet. It can come from text documents, right? It can come from videos, images, right? Right? And various other things, right? And what can be Y? Y can be stock market prediction, right? Stock prediction. Or face detection, maybe, based on the images. Or in a video, advertisement detection. Let's say you have a video, okay, and you want to detect where the ads are coming. Ads detection, right? So where X and Y are given, X and Y are given, that is supervised learning. Where X and Y are given, so your model is nothing but, this is your beautiful model. I mean, here it looks mathematical, right? All you're giving is X. And this can come from Excel sheet or text documents, or it can be images. And Y can be, it can be stock value, right? Stock value, or it can be salary that should be offered to a person, or it can be in classification. It can be cat, dog. You are just detecting, right? Or you are just detecting a traffic violation based on a video. Traffic violation, right? So this is what is supervised learning, right? Where X and Y is given, and then you build Y, and now when new X comes, so we call this training data, right? Train, and we have test. But when new data is presented, new X is presented, your model will be, you just feed it to the model. This is a black box, and it's going to give an output, right? And this is supervised learning. In unsupervised learning, it's completely different, guys. All you are given is X. That means bunch of images, right? Images, videos, text documents, right? Right, and various other things. It can be Excel sheets or transaction data. And now you're just given data, you are not been given Y. So now it's up to you what you want to do with it. Right? What can you do with it? So of course you can cluster this. You can cluster them, right? So if I'm given customer data for 10,000 customers, customer data might have what all it may have, right? It may have salary of the person, right? It may have age, right? Location, maybe city, right? Maybe what disease that person has, right? Vulnerability, right? Whatever. Uh, it can be his salary, it can be very, I mean, married or not, how many children he has. And now your algorithm can come up with clusters. So many people, of 10,000 people, 200 people belong to C1, 200 people, 300 people belong to C2, right? 200, 200, and 300 people belong to C3. And now model will say, don't say anything to these people. These are not going to buy. It may not be on the purely on the salary. Okay, don't misunderstand me. It may not be purely on the salary. It may be on so many other factors. It can, it can make a decision based on 100 features, right? So it's if you sell your product to, your product may be specific, right? Sell it to these guys, and your hit rate will be 60%. And if you sell it to these guys, your hit rate will be 0.01%. So this kind of insights, getting this kind of insight from the data is unsupervised learning. And unsupervised learning is becoming more and more popular. Don't think that it's a boring subject. That's very important actually. And most of the current, now the machine learning is slowly moving from supervised to unsupervised. Why? Because we have data everywhere, right? Lots of data. And nobody is telling what should be the expected values, right? There is no target, there is just bunch of data. And now you have to cluster the data and draw inferences out of it. So unclustered is, the clustering algorithms, unsupervised learning algorithms, don't think there is no money in that. It is picking up very fast. Okay. So that is one thing. So let me go back to the Excel sheet. So in unsupervised learning, as I explained, only data is given, no relationship between input and output variables. Okay. Within the supervised learning, there is a regression and a classification. So regression is where target label is a continuous value. Of course, I talked about it. Stock market prediction, right? Stock market prediction, salary offer based on the experience. You go to a company, these days they aren't roughly offering you salary, right? There are sophisticated algorithms based on 10 different factors. They are offering you salary. Or if it is not there, if companies don't have, I think you guys are going to build it. It's already there in many companies, and you guys are going to build it for other companies, right? Stock market prediction, which stock will give me the maximum returns, and what should be the salary of a person who is newly being recruited. And of course, you must have seen the airfares continuously changing every day, right? On Friday they go up, on Monday they come down, and on Saturday, Sunday they are highest. Similarly, Ola, Uber rates are changing. All this is being done by machine learning, and this is regression. Okay, and classification is different, like object class detection, whether it's a dog, cat, 1,000 images if you have. If your model is able to detect cat, dog, or snake, that's all classification. Or detecting a health condition like a cancer, or whether it's going to yes or no problems, or detecting a particular class, whether it's a cat or a dog, or corona or not corona. Okay, all that is classification. So now I know there are many ways to learn machine learning, but what I want to emphasize for those people who are learning machine learning, many people might have done a lot already, but if you want to learn a lot, where you can actually go to the program step by step and understand each and every variable, I found this is the best way. That is Jupyter Notebook, Anaconda, and Python. So you have to install Jupyter Notebook through Anaconda, or install Anaconda and use Python. And you all know, right, how powerful Python is. See, I come from, originally we guys did machine learning. When for us machine learning is not, there was no machine learning. It was machine language, assembly language. So that was very complicated. We had to deal with registers, right? RX, CX. So we wrote that machine language. And then we did C programming, and C programming is also very complicated. For us it was simple, but you guys, I don't know how many of you are doing C. It's a wonderful language. I love it. But after you see Python, you don't want anything better than that. That is the most powerful and syntactically flexible language that I've seen, and that's being used everywhere. So anybody would benefit by learning Python, and definitely data science and machine learning, artificial intelligence, Python is going to be very useful. Okay, so now yeah, I already talked about it. Syntactically very easy yet powerful language, right? So let me go and see if my presentation is coming. Good, it is there. So what are the, I mean, to start with, what are the libraries that you need to learn? So of course you need to learn numerical Python, NumPy. You need to learn pandas for data pre-processing, matplotlib, plots and graphs, Seaborn for plots and graphs, scikit-learn. Okay, so that is the basic level of programming, right? Then you graduate onto higher algorithms. Okay, so machine learning, I would like to classify broadly as three things, right? Classical machine learning, deep learning. You all know, right? I know all those guys who want high salaries, right? They all know the highest salaries are in this guy. Deep learning is like the gold mine right now. Okay, when I talk about salaries, right, I don't know how many of you have seen my YouTube videos. I have my own YouTube channels, and I keep emphasizing, and it's happening all around the world. Deep learning is going to give you the highest salaries. Like the average deep learning salary in the US was, even is 140K US dollars, and they go up to 200K dollars, 200K US dollars, right? And salaries are increasing in India as well. But I'm not talking about the current situation, okay? But the moment the market opens up, and also don't wait for the market to open up. Even now, there are lots of opportunities in deep learning. So I would advise you guys to, of course, without learning classical machine learning, the regular concept, if you go to deep learning directly, then probably you miss a lot. You're going to miss a lot. So you should learn this. There are lots of jobs in classical machine learning also. This is also very powerful. And deep learning is a specific area, so there are, more opportunities over there. And then of course NLP. So actually you'll be surprised, NLP and competing area is computer vision, right? These can be done using deep learning also, right? I can do sentiment analysis using deep learning, or classical machine learning, right? I'm just writing it down so that for your clarity, right? This also can be, this is mainly done using deep learning, right? So we are going to go through this today, a little bit of computer vision, just to give you a taste of what it is, a little bit of classical machine learning. Okay. What are the algorithms that you have to learn to say that you know classical machine learning? See guys, I mean, I know you all read, right? I mean, a lot of theories you might have read and you assimilated, digested that, but without actually programming it, I mean, it's not going to be great. So you need to actually get a feel of these algorithms, right? You need to use them regularly. You need to get hands-on, and that's where is the value. Okay, so first algorithm that you always learn is linear and polynomial regression, simultaneous vector machines. Logistic regression is a classification problem. Decision tree algorithms. K-means clustering. This comes in unsupervised, right? All these are supervised, right? Then PCA. PCA is a technique to reduce the dimensionality, right? So sometimes you have features of 100 different features, and it becomes difficult for you to visualize that, or you want to use that. Then we use techniques like PCA and TSNE. Then of course NLP. NLP is to deal with the classical machine learning way of dealing with the text. Then if you go a little deeper, see, after classical machine learning is deep learning, right? This is inspired by the neural network, and I love deep learning. I'm sure, and if you guys have done it, you will love it. And it's like they said, deep learning, because you can say in a different way, deep learning really requires deep learning. Why it's called deep learning is because it has deeper layers of learning, but you want to understand, it requires your mind to go deep into it. And PyTorch is a wonderful tool used by the researchers around the world, okay, and not so much in the industry, okay, this way. TensorFlow is used a lot in the industry, but this is also started getting used in the industry. And Keras requires a huge training data. That's a drawback, but it can do accurate predictions. Using pre-trained models is easier. Then you can use pre-trained models using deep learning. See, TensorFlow, PyTorch, they all have pre-trained models. It's very easy for you to use the pre-trained models. I will show you at least 2-3 pre-trained models today. And also I'll show you a little bit of OpenCV. Okay. Next, so it's 440. So NLP, text analytics, customer sentiment analysis, you all must be knowing, right? So you always, if you want to buy something, what do? You go and look at the reviews, right? And there are thousands and thousands of reviews, and in fact there are lakhs of reviews, and it's literally impossible for companies like Amazon, Google, for that matter, any company, to go through each review and understand what is the customer sentiment. And there's something called as not just sentiment analysis, right? It's a aspect-based sentiment analysis. Aspect-based sentiment analysis. So what happens? So let's say there are 20,000 reviews about a mobile device. Let's say Qualcomm Snapdragon 730, that is our chip, has gone into Samsung Galaxy A80, right? Right. So what do? All I do is go to this and search Samsung Galaxy A80. Then I feel very good. Oh my God, this is my product, right? So how do I buy it? I buy it, I just go here, right? And then there are 3024 reviews, and it's difficult. And as a buyer, it's very easy. I'll just look at the 5-star. Don't look at the 5-star. We guys are smart, right? We don't look at the 5-star ratings. We know there'll be 5-star ratings, but we always look at 1-star and 2-star and see how bad it can get. Or if those are fake reviews, some of them can be fake reviews, right? This is how you look at the reviews, right? A good man, my device is doing well. Okay, so there are a lot of 5-star ratings. So how a company, I mean Samsung, would look at the reviews? It is not going to read the reviews like that. It is going to feed it through the sentiment analysis model. Okay, and then you are going to get sentiment for, right? You're going to get customer sentiment for the device power consumption, right? Power, right? Standby current, right? Active current, standby current, right? The screen, display quality, right? Display quality, various other factors, right? The price, the video quality, the camera quality. So what companies do is they don't just review the sentiment analysis. Your model will tell you exactly how is the device power, how is the standby, how is the active, how is the display quality, how is the price. It's going to extract these aspects out of the sentiment. Okay, and that's very powerful, right? For a company which doesn't want to spend millions of dollars looking at 20 lakh reviews. Right? If customers, I mean, if they just run that, and then it gives you all the details, like what they need to improve or what is best, right? So they can focus more on that, right? So this is just one use case. There are 100 other use cases. So recommendation system, topic modeling, search engine, all these natural language processing gets used. Okay, so now let's start with the Jupyter Notebook. So if you guys haven't installed Jupyter Notebook, I will show you how to install it. It's very easy. Just go to Google, type Anaconda or Jupyter Notebook. Very clear, right? Download, type download. All these tools are free. Okay, so just the first link that comes, click on this, and then you can go down and you see here Anaconda installers. Okay, so there is a separate installer for Windows, Mac OS, Linux. So please do that today if you have not done it. Okay, So you can go here and install, don't install for other version of Python. Python 3.8 is good, so install that. Okay, you'll click on this and it will download the installer. I'm canceling it. But once you install that, so you will have Anaconda installed on your system. So once Anaconda is installed on your system, all you need to do is to open it. There are many ways to open it. You can directly go here and open Anaconda Navigator. So computer science guys must have done all this, right? Maybe others haven't done, or maybe they have done it, but please do it. This is going to pay you dividends. Okay, so it takes time. So that's why what I do is I use Anaconda command prompt. So that's coming up. That came up. Anaconda Navigator came up. All I do is I say okay, close it, or say no, I don't show it again. Okay, so here you see it has many tools. Even Spider is very good. This Spider is very good. Jupyter Notebook, this is what you need to launch. Just click on the Jupyter Notebook and launch, and your Jupyter Notebook will be launched. Okay, as simple as that. Or you can come here, Anaconda command prompt, right? That is, type in the Anaconda here, come to Anaconda command prompt and say Jupyter Notebook, and this is also going to open it. Okay, so quickly I will show you how to run the programs, because that's part of the schedule, right? Or you want me to jump to advanced directly? Let me ask you this question. Okay, so let's go to the Python then. Okay. Okay, so it's very easy to open Python programs from here. All you need to do is from Jupyter Notebook. This is the Jupyter Notebook that opened. It shows many folders. So all you need to do is go to the Jupyter Notebook. I mean the notebook files, right? IPYNB files, the Python notebook. So that will have extension .ipynb. So I'm going to I have lots of programs, neural network programs, basic Python programs. But for this case, I will just take a simple Python program, right? I have opened it here. Clear. So this is very easy to write hello world program. So I want to start with the hello world program. So you don't need to import anything, right? You don't need to hash include and all, right? Hash include main.h, all that is not required. Jupyter Notebooks takes care of all that. I mean, whatever includes required for basic programming, it is not required here. So just type, print anything you want. Print hello world, as simple as that, right? So that means once Jupyter Notebook is over, you start writing the programs directly. So I'm just writing one statement, num1 equals to 30. Done. And you see, I haven't mentioned the type of it. So the Jupyter Notebook automatically assigns the type of it. The Python itself, the Python itself automatically assigns that. You can assign any variable without talking about the type in Python. Okay, and the type is automatically assigned. So this becomes an integer. Num2 is 45. That becomes again an integer. If you look at type of, say I'm a hands-on guy, yeah. So I do like slides, but I would like to work with the programs. Okay, so print sum equals to num1 plus num2. It's going to do that. And type of sum should be integer, right? So let's skip this. So I can just see here, I'm just assigning a string to it. I don't even talk about the type, but type my string, it will give me string. My float equals to 9.9. I don't even talk about the type, but it will tell me it is a float. So Python has already decided for you. You don't need to. So, but I can convert from one type to other. So here I'm converting my float, which is float, to the string. I have to convert. See, I'm converting string of my float. It becomes num2 becomes a string. print my float. String and list operations are very simple in Python. See, I'm just giving you a little baby stuff, right? But there's so much more, right? So I don't want to complicate you in the beginning. I'll show you more interesting programs after this, okay, right after this. Let's say I want to define a string. So all I do is just my string equals to that entire string, right? Within single quotes or within double quotes. And now what should be type of my string? Already 452. So let me run faster. So what if I want to split it? This is just a string, right? I want to split. So I can split it. The string becomes what? It becomes a list of, actually it has become a list of strings, list of words rather, right? It has become a list. You can in fact join back that. I'm not going to do that. You can join it back. That is commented, so that's not going to run. So, but here, if I want to print output 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it should be string, right? String output 5 should be let's, or let's say I had a string like this, but this one I want to split. If I use this simple split, it won't work. So I need to mention the separator. Okay. So I'm going to mention the separator and then print output. It has separated it. If I have a hash, hello hash, my name hash is hash Nagaraj. Put the separator, right? My string 2.split and put the separator and it will split it. This is a very simple step. But if I put a separator, it won't split it because there's only one hash, but I'm putting 2 stars here. Similarly, you can just define a list, an array simply by enclosing them within square brackets, right? And within this can be any type. It doesn't have to be only one type. There can be a number here, there can be a string, there can be a character, anything, okay? And I can sort them also, right? Very easy. So these are not sorted, but if I sort, what will happen? Now these are all sorted. I can sort in the reverse direction also, reverse sort. I can concatenate the strings by just, string 1 plus string 2 equals to string. Okay, so so all this is fine, right? Let me go into a little more deeper stuff. Quickly, I will run, so you can also, this is a string, but you want to convert them to characters. All you do is list of string 1 and it gets converted to characters. Okay, similarly, there is a range-based for loop and the list-based for loop. Okay, so if I say range 1 to 10, it will show me 1 to 10. But if I say range 10, it will show me only 0 to 10. Okay, so this is because you all know this, so let me run it very fast through this. For I in range length, my array print. So this is a range-based for loop. Or I can say for I in range 20, just print hello, right? Or I can have a list and I can go item by item. For item in list 1, print the item, right? And it can have bizarre types like integer, strings. So all this is fine. Yeah, let's go to, and you can have a for loop running across 2 different variables, 2 different lists. So for that I can use zip. For xy in zip xy, print xy. xy, x and y, right? So this will run up to the smallest list. So this has only 4 elements, right? So I will get 5 ant, 4 clock, 3 fish and 2 bucket. That's what I got. But if this was smaller, you would have got that. I mean, this will be, if I have more items here, whichever is smaller, it will do that. 9, 10, 11, what will happen? I'll get more. But if I reduce this, it'll run up. Let's make it only 2, so this will run up to only 2. Right, only 2. Okay, quickly, nested for loops. I can do nested for loop within a for loop. Continue and break. I think you all know this, right? So let me go to a little more deeper stuff. Maybe I can supply this and you can have a look at it. Right? So I'm just showing you how many things you can do so easily in Jupyter Notebook, right? So I've written a while loop here. I've used for inside for, and then I put continue, and then I used a break. All this you can do. I mean, whatever you can do in Python, you can do it here. Okay. Okay, so let me show you a little more. So I'll show you how do we plot things, right, in pandas. Or rather, let me show you image operations using OpenCV. So you can do images using various different things, right? So here I'm showing different ways of reading the images. So let's say, so these are the imports you need to do for running this experiment. Okay, import OS, get current working directory. Okay, it seems I'm not in the correct directory. So let me go to the correct file. Okay, this is the one. So for this you need PIL. This is a library used for loading the images, and CV2. CV2 is OpenCV, okay, and it's very powerful. OpenCV is very powerful. I will show you some things, simple things you can do. Oh, why did I do pip install? I didn't want to do this. Okay, I'll comment this, but it's not going to harm. It says that already it's installed. Pip install OpenCV. Will install. Pip install OpenCV underscore Python will install the OpenCV. So I'm creating a path lib here. Okay, and then I'm just create. See, these are the images that I want to read. Right, it's very simple, right? Read those images, right? Using pil.image.open and just give the directory and it'll open and print it. So I got a masked man, probably from, I don't know, from China, I don't know. Okay, so type of this will be pil image type. Similarly, I can use even the PLT, right? The PLT library also provides you image reading facilities. Okay. So I'm matplot that comes from matplotlib, right? Matplotlib.image.imread. So I can read, and you see all the images are just array. I mean, three-dimensional arrays, right? So how do we see that they are three-dimensional arrays? So I read the image using a image.imread, and I'm reading same guy here, right? This guy. I read it using PLT, and it shows me numbers. That means, see, anything that usually the machine learning works only with numbers, right? Mostly it works with the numbers. That's what it is, right? But there are algorithms which don't require number. What's all this? So when we say linear regression, we say linear regression, right? This is used to predict continuous variables, right? So Y is modeled as, the output variable is modeled as W0 plus W1 X1 plus W2 X2 W3 X3. It goes on, right, for how many features you have, and this is what is your model. And the entire machine learning task is to not to get Y, right? It is to find f of x first. That's what is learning, right? This is what is learning, and of course this is a formula and it requires numbers. So your features have to be converted to numbers, right? Everything has to be numbers in general, right? But there are algorithms like decision tree classifier. Maybe there are many algorithms like that which don't require numbers. It can be just you can have just the words like cat, dog. You can have strings also like this. Otherwise, in general, this is formula is based on numbers, right? So you need everything to be in numbers, and even for the image, right? So how will the image look like, right? Image will be typically like this, right? And this can be 200 pixels here, and this can be 200 pixels, and there'll be 3 channels. We call them channels. So if you know the image, it will be either like 3 cross 200 cross 200. Okay, or it can be 200 cross 200 cross 3 and 3, and this 3 is number of channels, RGB. Okay, so but for machine learning algorithm, this image, right? This can be any image, right? Any image, right? It can be, right? So this is nothing but numbers. For deep learning, you see, when you pass an image like this, you know how many features it is taking? 200 into 200 into 3. How much is it? 4 into 3 into 10 power 2. 10 power 4. How much is it? 12 into 10,000. Oh my God. This is the 1,20,000. So this is what deep learning, right? That's what we call it. Deep learning is dealing with 1,20,000 just for a simple image. 1,20,000 features. And how many and neural network has weights, and weights will run into millions. Millions of weights. But that's why deep learning became famous, you know. This theory was known even in 90s. Deep learning was known even in 90s, but our computers were not fast enough to use them. Now our computers can do all these 1,20,000 features and millions of weights. It can do it in just split seconds, right? So coming back to our program, which was here, right? So we saw that all these are numbers. And what is the shape of the images? Typically, it will be like height, breadth, right? Height, pixels in the height side, the height pixels, breadth, and the number of channels, right? And you can actually do a lot of things with this, right? I can again type it, print it, plt.imshow, the same. It's nothing but three-dimensional array. It's a mathematics, it's numbers, right? See, and there are 3 channels, right? Here I'm only taking the second channel and I'm dividing it by 250. So that means the image is getting normalized. The image values will be from 0 to 255. Right? Those values, when you divide by 250, it gets normalized. And how does it look after normalizing? It is looking like this because it's only single channel. Or even I can add a random noise, np.random.random. How will it be just adding a random noise? It's good to play around, right? It'll look like this, but it's random noise. How about adding this random noise and removing it? That's what you should be doing, right? I'm not going to do it, but that's what you should do. Add random noise and use the filters to remove it. Here I'm adding a DC noise, which is a constant value. Okay, so you can do various operations, right? You can read the images and print them in a grid shape, just using Python. Or you can read the image using the OpenCV, cv2.imread. Say I'm reading, passing the path directory, and I'm saying I want all files with star.jpg. And how many files I got? None. That is interesting. How did I get none? Because I didn't read the first one. Yeah, I didn't execute the first command. Okay, so then we have some phases. So you can I'm reading the phase 1. See, these are all files, right? Using CV2, I'm reading the phase 1. And that's again, CV2 is also going to give the same shape, right? It has 430 like length, breadth, and the number of channels. And these are again numbers. And let's see how it looks like. In fact, it is going to plot it, right? So let's increase the size. Just resize that. It's very simple. Resize it. Oh, it becomes so big. So it's all about dealing with. CVT is wonderful. CV2 is a wonderful tool, and it has all these beautiful APIs that you can work with. So say I want to draw a line in that, I draw a line red color, and I can change the color of that also, right? Because the color is this parameter. You give RGB the color, and you can also change the. You can see I'm just drawing a bounding box in object detection. Where is that? It still came. Okay, now what do we want to do? We want to close this. Actually, 2 of them. So I think I ran too much. So, but we don't want to do a line by line, right? We'll do a rectangle. Do a rectangle on the image. You can do a circle also. See, why do we have to have face detection always running on the rectangles? Because your algorithm detected that. But if your algorithm is running using the circle radiuses, probably you can actually detect using the circle, right? So this is all in this one. Let me go to the next topic, which is I will show you. It's already 5/7, so I'll show you how to do the. I will show you the object detection. Okay, classification. I'll show you classification. Okay, so for that I will use one particular file. Okay, so for classification I will go to okay, bear with me. See, I have hundreds of files, man. So this is what I want to show you. So you guys also can do it. It is not very difficult. Okay, so where are we? We are here. So we are in this particular folder. Okay, and what I want to show you is, see, I have a number of images here. This is an Audi car. Doesn't look like my Audi. So this is a butterfly, cheetah, and we want to pass it. See, we don't have to do your own algorithm, right? We are going to use pre-trained algorithm to detect all these creatures. So we'll pass this creature to our model and see if it is going to detect. Okay. So these are, I have a folder which has all these images. We'll pass it through the pre-trained model and see if it is going to detect this. Right. So I am doing it using PyTorch, but it can be done in a much simpler way also. So PyTorch has a pre-trained model. So I'm going to use VGG is a very famous pre-trained model. So if you want to find more about VGG, right, just go here to Google and say VGG 19 architecture. It's a wonderful pre-trained network. It has lots of layers like this. It has many layers. You pass the image and it passes through all these layers, right? And you finally get a detection here. In fact, it is not just that you detect the objects, right? Whether it's a dog or cat, you can also use the features, and that's called transfer learning. You can use pre-trained networks and do many other wonderful things with it. Okay, you can use pre-trained network and do wonderful things. Okay, let me show you some things. At least whatever time we have, we'll see some things. So I am instantiating that VGG 19 model through PyTorch. Okay, and I am using the os.listdir, a simple Python library, OS library. So I am going to read all the files, right? And I'm going to convert the images to tensors because PyTorch requires PyTorch tensors. If it is TensorFlow, TensorFlow would also require its own tensors. Okay. So now I am going to print them here. See, I'm just printing the images that I read, that I showed you, right? Now I'm going to pass this to the network. And network should already detect it actually. It is going to give the numbers for each of those. Say it is given, this is object number 1 is 436, object number 2 is 323, but I need to convert them to labels. So I have a file that I have downloaded. It's called ImageNet classifier labels. Okay, so this is all from ImageNet, right? ImageNet. So now, okay, the label is not found. Oh my God, here. See, it actually, it did it. Okay, so what happened? Let's do it one more time. Okay, some tigers. It did not show. Oh, I didn't run everything here in peace. In the rush of running, I think I ran so fast that I missed running some things. Okay, so let me run from the beginning. right? Clear? Let's run through. I can run all the items at one point, but I like this. I like this stuff. You see, now the model has detected, that this is a car. It says it's a beach wagon. It's fine. It didn't say it's Audi. It doesn't read the number plate. It just says it's a beach wagon. And this is a particular type of butterfly called monarch. And then this is cheetah. That's correct, no? And this this one is saying tennis ball. I don't know. Maybe this is looking like a tennis ball, but usually it says this is a dog. Okay, and this is a goldfish. That's correct. See, every model has its error rate, right? This is goldfish. This is goldfish. This is, it says lions correctly. This is lion correctly, and this is a gibbon monkey. It predicted it correctly, and this is a peacock, and this is an airliner. Okay, so let me show you something more interesting than this. Okay, as we are the time is clicking, so let me show you something more interesting. Okay, so for anybody, any question? Or I would like to take the questions in the end. Yeah, so let's do the questions in the end. Okay, okay. So because I want you to get, be alert and get excited about what I'm showing you, right? So now I will show you object detection using YOLO V3. YOLO V3 is a wonderful pre-trained model. It's called You Look Only Once. Okay, You Look and a cafe. Okay, I will also show you cafe. Two models I'm going to show you. Again, I'm going to show. So again, you need the same for this exercise, right? You need CV2. You need time only if you want to check how much time this model is taking. Okay. So I am going to see CV2 has a lot of pre-trained models. So I'm going to use a pre-trained model called YOLO V3 and a cafe. Okay, YOLO V3 is for object detection and cafe is for face detection. Okay, let's do some nice object detection, face detection, and something after that we'll do detection on the videos. Okay, that will be more interesting. Okay, so I am reading. Don't worry about it. Okay, you can find it out. So I'm reading the configuration files called coconames.txt, which converts basically the numbers. The detected number detections will be numbers, right? We want to convert them to names. So we're reading that configuration file. We are, and the labels it detects are these labels. It detects. It can detect a person, bicycle, car, motorbike, aeroplane, all these things, right? You can do wonderful things yourself with these things. Okay, you can write. Okay, also it requires YOLO v3.weights, YOLO v3.cfg, and this is the image that you can choose any image that you want. I'm going to run this. Okay, so now I'm going to see I instantiated two models here. cv2.dnn.read net from darknet. So this is the pre-trained model from CV2 itself. I mean, OpenCV has pre-trained models, okay, and I'm using those. See, this is just to give you a sense, right? Not to teach you step by step, and that is going to take time. But just to get a sense of what you can do, I'm showing you. And I would say if you put effort, and this can be done by everybody. And if, of course, in my course that I take a machine learning course for students. It's a 8 weeks course, and I teach them all this. And it's not just theory, right? When people come out of the course after going through my machine learning course, they should know how to do object detection, face detection, how to deploy the models, how to do the sentiment analysis, right? And how to, even I'm going to teach how to do deploy these models in the Android or in the websites. Okay, so I'm just reading the image here, and I read and printed it. This is what I read. Let me do it one more time. It has read the image. This is a beautiful street called Lombardo Street in San Francisco. Okay, I think I visited this because I visited so many places. I remember seeing this, but I found this is a good one to have to try this exercise. Okay, so we read the image, and of course images are numbers and three-dimensional arrays, and we are going to convert from image, we convert it to blob. Okay, in OpenCV you convert the image to a blob. What blob means is, it is basically an image which is normalized because and it needs to have 416 by 416 dimension only, because see, every model has certain number of input parameters. So that's why when you pass an image to a particular model, then you need to customize that image or resize or reshape or pass it through or create a blob out of it. Okay, we're creating a blob out of it, and I'm taking a minimum confidence 0.7. What I'm saying is there'll be thousands of detections. You'll be surprised. On this image, just imagine how many detections we have. You'll be surprised. Okay, I paused it. See, I created a blob here. This is a blob. What is the shape of the blob? The shape of the image was this, man. 762 cross 1024 cross 3. But the blob is slightly different. It always keeps an extra dimension here. That's how it takes it, because you can pass. This is kept for passing multiple images. If you have 10 images, this number will be 10. And this is the number of channels. And this is converted to a fixed dimension, fixed number of pixels. That's how the model works. That's the reason we need to convert it to blob. So we did that. Now we are passing it to the, setting it as input to the model, passing through the model. Net.forward will pass it through the model and produces n number of detections. It actually produces 3 layers of detections. First layer has 507 detections. Second layer has, let me do, okay, so second layer will have how many detections? Oh my God, what do we do? Yeah, we have 507, 2028 detections and 8112 detections. But the point is, this will do lots of detections, right? YOLO V3, but we will select only those detections that have high confidence. So our threshold is 0.7. You can experiment by changing the threshold also. Okay, so I have put, my threshold was minimum confidence. So I'll pass it through this variable. I don't want a number, fixed number here. I put 0.55, but I'm going to change. Okay, run it. So this is wonderful. So you see, you have lots of detections, and here a person, see, around every object there is some rectangle, and what is that rectangle called? And there is some number, car 0.884, car 0.960, this car 0.84, and person 0.966. What are those? Anybody? I think you guys are all very smart. I know you must be knowing all this, right? Any answers? Okay, so those are all bounding boxes, right? The rectangle around the images. So you're all with me, right? You're able to hear me? Please say yes. Somebody please say yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Rakesh, Rakhi, Shivaji, Ashok, Josna, Patna. Okay, Shiva. So that's good. So you are with me. Okay, you didn't run away, right? So these are bounding boxes, right? In object detection, what you have is bounding boxes. And then these are confidences, probabilities, right? So, but this particular car is not getting detected. So if I want that to be detected, what do I do? Simple tweak, right? What do I do? I'll do a small tweak in the program. Where is my program? Okay, so I have lots of programs open. So this is what I was doing, right? So we ran this. So if you want that more things to be detected, you need to decrease your confidence threshold. I'll make it 0.5. Then you'll have so many detections, probably you wouldn't want that many detections. Okay, so we have so many detections, right? Okay. So this is good. So can we use this concept and apply it on video? I'll show you. It's very simple. It's not very difficult. It can be done, but it does take some time and energy and effort. So this logic I have converted it, detection logic I converted it into functions, two functions. I have one function which detects from YOLO v3, another function that detects from cafe. Okay. So now I will do from the cafe. Okay, I'm calling a similar function. I'm reading faces 5. Okay, now I'll show. You can also do object detection like this. I mean face detection. So these are like 6 ladies, and we want to detect their faces, face detection, right? So pass it through the model. Here I'm passing it through a different model called cafe. See, now I'm passing it through the model, and you see the face detection. Now the faces are getting detected, right? Now let's say I want to now do the same thing on the videos, right? So now I want to do the same thing on the videos. So let me look at what video I have. ASUS image captions. Okay, object detection. So I'll pass it through the video, right? So let's run this video. So I'll run object detection on this, and you can see how it works. So philosophy is same, right? You read, philosophy is same. You read the images and pass it through the model, right? So let's do that. I'm using a cv2.video capture, but the file was different, right? So first let's do this. I'll pass it through this. And now you see, this is a little slow because the model itself has inherent delay. Okay, I could easily remove this. I can easily remove this, but just for showing you know that the model will take some time, so your video will become very slow. But this can be easily changed. Okay, easily changed. And now you have cars on the highway, right? And people are, I mean, the camera is, surveillance camera is watching them, and it's detecting the objects, right? And in fact, it's detecting the people inside that also. You see the person. Okay, so let's do something more than this. Okay, next I want to show you is I have I will show you. Okay, so I will show you one more video. So I have a video like this. This is a bear in the woods. This is a use case where your camera is, you are a wildlife photographer. You are a wildlife photographer and your camera is fit in the forest. And now you are, you're gone out to sleep, or maybe you're gone out of station. But your camera should detect if there's a bear in the camera should detect, right? If there's a bear in the video, right? Same program you can tweak, right? Same program you can tweak. So I'm going to tweak the same program, tweak a little bit, because now I've actually I made a small changes to the program, and I'm detecting, every time I see a bear, I will flash it. I have put that logic. It's very simple. You guys can do it. Error in opening the video stream because I opened it, I guess. So this we saw here. Okay, so I think bear in the woods.mp3, yeah, mp4. So that should be correct. You see, the same thing I'm running, same model using CV2, and now it's able to detect bear in the woods. So you can do wonderful applications with this kind of things. Okay, got it? And this is the probability of detection is 1. It's not even 0.999. Okay, so now let's do something more interesting, which is let's do this thing on a video camera. Let's see. So I'm running the same program here, but just that I slightly customized it. So this we already seen it. I don't want to see it again. This we've seen it. Cars on a highway. I don't want to see it. Face detection with camera. So now using a cafe model, right? Same concept, okay? I'm doing a face detection on the camera. Run it. It takes some time. It takes time. Yeah, because actually these models I am running with a lot of programs. I have some 100. you see me, right? So this is the same program which is doing face detection using the camera, okay? And it's the camera quality is not so great. It's not showing me in a really good light, okay? So that's one thing. So I can do the same thing with YOLO, right? So YOLO is object detection. It's not face detection framework, so it's going to show more objects around my vicinity. Okay, so it looks like it's going to take some time. Okay, yeah. So usually, I mean, this can detect many more things. Maybe if I move it around. See, it says it's a flower vase, and this one it's saying that those are my trophies. Saying it's a TV monitor. This is a vase. So YOLO is going to run like this. Okay. So this is what I wanted to show you, right? So now we got lost in this presentation, right? Let's go back to the PPT. So we saw natural language processing, right? So this is all. This is what I wanted to show you, right? So all this that we are doing is using OpenCV, and the model that I showed you are actually deep learning models only, but those are pre-trained networks, and they are being called from OpenCV. Okay, and these are wonderful applications. Okay, and you can also learn, and you can also do a lot of stuff with this, and implement. Especially the one I showed you, right? The face detection one. You can use it as a surveillance camera for your home. Fit it there with your computer cable connected, and go out of station. And just like I had that logic, right? Bear found or something like that. Every time you see a person, say that a man found, and save the clip to a video file. Okay, and wherever you are in the world, send the video to them. So that means you have managed to do a proper surveillance camera. Or when you come back, you'll go and check who are the people who visited my house. Who are the people who visited my house when I was not there? So many wonderful applications you can do. Okay. So now coming back to this. Okay. So that is OpenCV, a deep learning. I think we are running out of time. I would take some questions if you guys had some questions on this. But before that, let me talk about ourselves. Okay. So again, coming back to that, why AI and ML, right? So ML researcher in the US is getting paid 150K to 200K per annum, and salaries are growing in India too. And total business is expected to reach $190 billion by 2025. I mentioned this point. Now almost every industry needs AI and ML. Okay. So a little bit about our machine learning course. Our machine learning course, we are offering a 8 weeks course, okay, which covers hands-on trainings, lots of examples like this. We will include even the model deployment, okay. And if you go to other big institutes, the courses will be very expensive. But for students, we have made it much more affordable. So we give hands-on training, okay, and we give make it simple and easy for you. It should not look like, oh my God, I cannot learn this. What is this? We are going to teach you the complex concepts as well as how to use them in a simple way. And we are providing you additional resources, and these will be webinar based. There will be 2 hours of class every week. That can be increased, but as per the current schedule, it is 2 hours per week. In 8 weeks, you will learn all this, okay, and that will enhance your future prospects greatly, okay. It is not just that you are going to Coursera and learning some theory. It's not like that. You'll be actually doing these things, okay. And then we cover everything, right? We cover Python, feature engineering, regression, classification, face detection, image classification, introduction to neural networks, industry relevant problems, various other things, okay. And this is, you can find more about these course details. Just go to my website, okay, www.datagrounded.com, okay. So our website is still, see, we are relatively new company, but we are growing company. So we are doing a lot of stuff, and a lot more is going to come. So just go to this tab called AIML Students, okay, and here you'll see the machine learning course for students, 8 to 10 weeks. And we have an internship challenge, and that's a very exciting challenge, okay. So you find, I'll just post this in your chat so that you can look at it yourself, okay. Okay, so you can look at it yourself. Okay, so we have an internship challenge, okay. So we are going to teach all this, right? And the internship challenge is those people who take this course, okay, and who do well up to top, we have said up to 5 to 10 top performers will be selected as interns for Data Grounded. So it won't be just like any other intern, right? So we will have very interesting problems to work with. It will add a great value. So basically the interns that are working with us, they will be working on the next generation AI and ML technology, okay? And they will build models using deep learning, PyTorch, TensorFlow, OpenCV. They will do object detection, videos, camera, image captioning, and maybe they will be part of the next generation and the best AIML course in the market. And they may also become part of the best AIML. So the internship will be for three months, but to become eligible for that, you need to register for our course, okay? And the registration for the course can be done at the same website, datagrounded.com, students-AIML, okay? So we have 2 batches, batch 1 starting from 3rd of October and batch 2 starting from 10th of October, okay? And we have brought down the price for students just to 5,000 per student, okay? So you can register that and you can learn all this technology and still become eligible for internship with Data Grounded, okay? And you'll be working with me, and of course, other challenging industry problems, okay? So this is about the course, and I also ask you, that you can look at my machine learning channel. I have my own machine learning channel. It's a wonderful machine learning channel. At least that's what people have said. I don't know, I shouldn't be saying wonderful, but it's an evolving channel, right? We just started it. We just started like a year back or something, okay? And I have talked on a different topics about PyTorch, so I'll paste you on your chat. You can register for this, right? This is free, right? Register to my machine learning channel, okay? So with this, so with this and so any questions? With this, I am done. and I'll be ready to take your questions. I think I can have like 5 minutes to take your questions. Okay. Okay, it's here. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 3 channels. I mean, every model requires 3 channels. So there are also a lot of data set, right? MNIST data set you can download, and MNIST data set is a single channel, and you can use do a lot of image detection using the single data channel as well. So you can have 3 channel images, or you can also have a single channel images. So there is a way to give single channel images also. You can give black and white images. Actually, OpenCV is very powerful. Even I haven't explored all the features of OpenCV. Okay, you can actually do edge detection. You can filter the images. You can do many other filtering operations like removing the noise, increasing the clarity, right? So OpenCV itself is a completely different and vast subject. It has a lot of things. Any questions specific to what I showed you? So I would say you guys, if you're not done machine learning, you should do machine learning, and just don't go by Coursera or Udemy kind of courses. Go through courses where somebody is teaching you, on a week-to-week basis. Somebody is teaching you, and then you're doing assignments and actually participating in the programs. Okay. So that, and of course, go learn the TensorFlow and PyTorch. That's very important. Do object detection, face detection, do your own models. Just don't go by pre-trained models. Learn your own models. So any more questions on the, about the course, or about the internship, or even about the artificial intelligence, machine learning? Okay, so if you have no questions, I have given you all the links, and I have given you the information. So go through it, okay, and come back to me, and you can join my channel and get a lot of information. Okay, so Bhargav, are you still there? Bhargav, or I mean, whoever is the moderator, right?
Sir, I'm here, sir.
Yeah, basically I can send you the slides, Bhargav. Okay, so if you have any questions, you or anybody, about the program that I showed you, or about our courses, or about the internship, I'm free to answer that. If there are no courses, then we are done. If there are no questions, we are done. Any questions? Okay, wonderfully. I think you guys are experts. No questions. Okay, so with this, I would like to thank again, Mr. KK Singh, the faculty convener, Uday Kiran, president, and Bhargav, I thank you, and of course, I thank Mr. Diwakar Singh for facilitating this and coordinating this. Thank you all, and you have a great evening. And we are done. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Bhargav. So you can close the. Yeah, you can close the meeting.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Okay, thank you. So be in touch with me, Bhargav, if you have any questions. or even Divakar Singh is there. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome. Bye bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye bye.